Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And here at the live studios at ISKCON Govardhan Ashram, in my room, my home, my base, you might say. I have a room full of spiritual seekers that are just, they're the die-hard hearers that can't get enough. And even when Vaisheshika Prabhu and I stopped the Vrat, they just couldn't stop. So here they are, and we welcome them all. Hare Krishna, Haribol, Haribol, welcome to all of you. So we're back into the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. We just heard the whole Krishna book, so we heard the whole 10th canto, but now we get to hear, the verses and commentaries as it unfolds. We're very, very lucky. I just received a message from Vilas Manjari from Australia, who was one of our most loyal hearers, and she's so happy to see us back every day. And she's also getting all kinds of facilities in her service as a result of the mercy she's getting from hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. She also told us that although the live streaming was a little bit not completely clear, when she listened to it afterwards, there was no breakage and it was smooth. So please give us your blessings so that the internet will work properly. Okay, now that the administrative stuff is out of the way, let's jump in to the Bhagavatam. Sanatana, he offered this prayer to the Srimad Bhagavatam in his Sri Krishna Lila Stava, which was aimed at offering 108 obeisances to the Vrindavan pastimes of Krishna. And these verses, verses 412 through 416 of the Sri Krishna Lila Stava are the 107th obeisance. So it's next to the last obeisance that Sanatana Goswami is offering to the Vrindavan pastimes of Krishna. And he offers them to the Bhagavatam because it's the Bhagavatam that gives the Krishna Lila to us, the Vrindavan Lila to us. So it goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Padaya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutayin Adinunchatakara Hanamunchagadachin Mam Premna Rit Gantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we've reached the 10th canto, 34th chapter. Nanda Maharaj, saved, and Sankhacuda, slain. This chapter describes how Lord Sri Krishna saved his father Nanda from the clutches of a serpent and delivered a Vidyadhara named Sudarshan from the curse of the Angirasa sages. One day, Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men placed their family members on their bullock carts and went to the Ambikavana forest to worship Lord Shiva. After bathing in the Saraswati river and worshipping Lord Sadashiva, a form of Lord Vishnu, they decided to spend the night in the forest. As they slept, a hungry serpent came and began to swallow Nanda Maharaj. Terrified, Nanda cried out in distress, "O Krishna, O my son, please save this surrendered soul." The cowherd men immediately awoke and began with wooden torches. But the serpent would not release Nanda. Then Lord Krishna came and touched the serpent with his lotus foot. The serpent was immediately freed from his reptilian body, his original form as a demigod. He told them about his previous identity and described how he had been cursed by a group of sages. Then he offered his homage at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and, on the Lord's order, returned to his own abode. Later, during the Dola Purnima festival, Sri Krishna and Baladev enjoyed pastimes in the forest with the young women of Braj. The girlfriends of Baladev and those of Krishna joined together and sang about their transcendental qualities. When the two lords became absorbed in singing to the point of apparent intoxication, a servant of Kuvera's named Sankhacuda boldly came forward and began abducting the gopis. The young girls called out, "Krishna, please save us!" And he and Rama began to chase after Sankhacuda. "Don't be afraid," Krishna called out to the gopis. In fear of the lords, Sankhacuda left the gopis aside and ran for his life. Krishna chased after them, swiftly approached him, and with a blow of his fist, removed Sankhacuda's jewel along together with his head. Then Krishna brought the jewel back and presented it to Lord Baladev. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, one day, the cowherd men, eager to take a trip to worship Lord Shiva, traveled by bullock carts to the Ambika forest. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the word Ekada here indicates the occasion of Shivaratri. He further mentions that Ambikavana is in Gujarat province, near the city of Siddhapur. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur adds that the departure of the cowherd men specifically took place on the 14th lunar day of the dark fortnight of the month of Phalguna. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti also quotes authorities who claim that Ambikavana lies on the bank of the Saraswati river northwest of Mathura. Ambikavana is notable because within it are deities of Lord Shiva and his wife, goddess Uma. Text 2. O king, after arriving there, they bathed in the Saraswati and then devotedly worshipped with various paraphernalia the powerful Lord Pashupati and his consort, goddess Ambika. Text 3. The cowherd men gave the brahmanas gifts of cows, gold, clothing, and cooked grains mixed with honey. Then the cowherds prayed, "May the Lord be pleased with us." Text 4. Nanda, Sunanda, and the other greatly fortunate cowherds spent that night on the bank of the Saraswati, strictly observing their vows. They fasted, taking only water. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that Sunanda is the younger brother of Nanda Maharaj. Text 5. During the night, a huge and extremely hungry snake appeared in that thicket, slithering on his belly up to the sleeping Nanda Maharaj. The snake began swallowing him. Text 6. In the clutches of the snake, Nanda Maharaj cried out, "Krishna, Krishna, my dear boy, this huge serpent is swallowing me. Please save me, who am surrendered to you." When the cowherd men heard the cries of Nanda, they immediately rose up and saw that he was being swallowed. Distraught, they beat the serpent with blazing torches. 8. But even though the firebrands were burning him, the serpent would not release Nanda Maharaj. Then the Supreme Lord Krishna, master of his devotees, came to and touched the snake with his foot. 9. The snake had all his sinful reactions destroyed by the touch of the Supreme Lord's divine foot, and thus he gave up his serpent body and appeared in the form of a worshipable Vidyadhara. Purport. The words Rupam, Vidya, Dhararchitam indicate that the erstwhile snake appeared in a beautiful form, worshipable among the demigods, Vidyadharas. In other words, he appeared as the leader of the Vidyadharas. Text 10. The Supreme Lord Rishikesha then questioned this personality, who was standing before him with his head bowed, his brilliantly effulgent body bedecked with golden necklaces. Purport. The demigod was about to speak, and Lord Krishna wanted to focus everyone's attention on his words. Therefore he personally inquired from the worshipable Vidyadhara, who was standing before him with his head bowed. Text 11. Lord Krishna said, "My dear sir, you appear so wonderful, glowing with such great beauty. Who are you? And who forced you to assume this terrible body of a snake?" 12 and 13. The serpent replied, "I am the well-known Vidyadhara named Sudarshan. I was very opulent and beautiful, and I used to wander freely in all directions in my airplane. Once I saw some homely sages of the lineage of Angira Muni. My beauty, I ridiculed them, and because of my sin, they made me assume this lowly form." 14. It was actually for my benefit that those merciful sages cursed me, since now I have been touched by the foot of the Supreme Spiritual Master of all the worlds, and have thus been relieved of all inauspiciousness. 15. My Lord, you destroy all the fear for those who, fearing this material world, take shelter of you. By the touch of your feet, I am now freed from the curse of the sages. O destroyer of distress, please let me return to my planet. Purport. According to the Acharyas, the word aprichche indicates that Sudarshan humbly requested the Lord for permission to return to his abode, where he might take up his duties again, certainly in a chastened state of mind. Text 16. O Master of mystic power, O great personality, O Lord of the devotees, I surrender to you. Please command me as you will, O Supreme God, Lord of all lords of the universe. 17. O infallible one, I was immediately freed from the Brahmana's punishment simply by seeing you. Anyone who chants your name purifies all who hear his chanting as well as himself. Shall I hear? You want to hear that again? Yes. You don't sound very enthusiastic.
Yes.
O infallible one, I was immediately freed from the Brahmana's punishment simply by seeing you. Anyone who chants your name purifies all who hear his chanting as well as himself. How much more beneficial then is the touch of your lotus feet? Text 18. Shukadeva Goswami continues, thus receiving the permission of Lord Krishna, the demigod Sudarshan circumambulated, bowed down to offer him homage, and then returned to his heavenly planet. Nanda Maharaj was thus delivered from peril. 19. The inhabitants of Braja were astonished to see the mighty power of Sri Krishna. Dear King, they then completed their worship of Lord Shiva and returned to Braja, along the way respectfully describing Krishna's powerful acts. 20. Once Lord Govinda and Lord Rama, the wonderful, were playing in the forest at night with the young girls of Braja. Purport. This verse introduces a new pastime. According to the Acharyas, the occasion mentioned here is the Holika Purnima, a day also known as Gora Purnima. This is holy. 21. Krishna and Balaram wore flower garlands and spotless garments, and their limbs were beautifully decorated and anointed. The women sang their glories in a charming way, bound to them by affection. 22. The two lords praised the nightfall, signaled by the rising of the moon and the appearance of stars, a lotus-scented breeze, and bees intoxicating the fragrance of jasmine flowers. 23. Krishna and Balaram sang, producing the entire range of musical sounds simultaneously. Their singing brought happiness to the ears and minds of all living beings. Text 24. The Gopis became stunned when they heard that song. Forgetting themselves, O King, they did not notice that their fine garments were becoming loose and their hair and garlands disheveled. 25. While Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram thus played according to their own sweet will and sang to the point of apparent intoxication, a servant of Kubera named Sankhacuda came upon the scene. King, even as the two lords looked on, Sankhacuda brazenly began driving the women off toward the north. The women who had accepted Krishna as their lords began to cry out to them. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, the demon Sankhacuda shook a large stick at the beautiful young girls, thus frightening them and driving them toward the north. He did not actually touch them, as is corroborated by the following verse. 27. Hearing their devotees crying out Krishna, Rama, and seeing that they were just like cows being stolen by a thief, Krishna and Balaram began to run after the demon. 28. The lords called out in reply, "Do not fear." Then they picked up logs of the shal tree. You see these beams? Shal tree. They're famous in India as the strongest wood, the strongest hardwood that you can get. The lords called out reply, "Do not fear." Then they picked up logs of the shal tree and quickly pursued that lowest of Guyakas, who swiftly ran away. 29. Then Sankhacuda saw the two of them coming toward him like the personified forces of time and death. He was filled with anxiety. Confused, abandoned the women and fled for his life. 30. Lord Govinda chased the demon wherever he ran, eager to take his jewel. Meanwhile, Lord Balarama stayed with the women to protect them. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that the women were fatigued from being driven away, and thus Lord Balarama protected them and consoled them as they rested. Meanwhile, Lord Krishna went after the demon. 31. The mighty Lord overtook Sankhacuda from a great distance, as if from nearby, my dear king, and then with his fist the Lord removed the wicked demon's head together with his crest jewel. 32. Having thus killed the demon Sankhacuda and taken away his shining jewel, the Lord gave it to his elder brother with great satisfaction as the gopis watched. Purport. Various gopis perhaps thought that Govinda would give one of them the valuable jewel. To prevent rivalry among them, Sri Krishna happily gave the jewel to his older brother, Balaram. Thus end purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 34th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Nanda Maharaj Shaved and Sankhacuda Slain. Jai Balaram, Jai Shri Krishna, well done, all victory to you. Chapter 35. The Gopis sing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest. This chapter continues the songs of the Gopis, the songs the Gopis sing to express their feelings of separation from Krishna when he goes to the forest during the day. As the Gopis' mood of separation from Sri Krishna becomes ever more intense, his names, forms, qualities, and pastimes begin spontaneously manifesting in their hearts. Thus they join together and sing as follows. The beauty of Krishna attracts the minds of all. When he stands in his threefold bending way and plays upon his flute, the Siddhas' wives, flying in the sky with their husbands, become attracted to him and forget external reality. The bulls and other animals in the pasture become stunned in ecstasy, and they stand still with the grass unchewed between their teeth, that they appear like figures in a drawing. Indeed, even the unconscious rivers stop flowing. Just see, when Krishna dresses himself in forest array and calls the cows names by blowing on his flute, even the trees and creepers become so ecstatic out of love that their limbs display eruptions and their sap pours down like a torrent of tears. The sound of Krishna's flute causes the cranes, swans, and other birds in the lakes to close their eyes in deep meditation, the clouds in the sky to gently rumble, imitating the flute's vibration, and even such great authorities in the science of music as Indra to offer everything we have to Krishna. So the wives of the black deer follow him about, imitating us. And just as we gopis, I got a little carried away here. I'll go back. The sound of Krishna's flute causes the cranes, swans, and other birds in the lakes to close their eyes in deep meditation, the clouds in the sky to gently rumble, imitating the Lord's vibration, and even such great authorities in the science of music as Indra, Shiva and Brahma to become astonished. And just as we gopis are anxious to offer everything we have to Krishna, so the wives of the black deer follow him about, imitating us. When Krishna is returning to Braj, he constantly plays his flute, while his young companions chant his glories, and Brahma and other chief gods come to worship his lotus feet. Thus the gopis, feeling intense separation from Krishna, sing of his pastimes. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, whenever Krishna went to the forest, the minds of the gopis would run, and thus the young girls sadly spent their days loudly singing of his pastimes. Purport. Although the gopis enjoyed direct association with Krishna at night in the rasa dance, during the day he went about his normal duties, tending his cows in the forest. At that time the minds of the gopis would run after him, but the young girls had to stay back in the village and do their own duties. Thus, feeling the pain of separation, they would sing about Sri Krishna's transcendental pastimes. Text 2 and 3. The gopis said, O gopis, when Mukunda vibrates the flute he has placed to his lips, stopping its holes with his tender fingers, he rests his left cheek on his left arm and makes his eyebrows dance. At that time, the demigoddesses traveling in the sky with their husbands, the Siddhas, become amazed. As those ladies listen, they are embarrassed to find their minds yielding to the pursuit of lusty desires, and in their distress they are unaware that the belts of their garments are loosening. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami states that this chapter consists of a collection of statements the gopis made at various times as they stood in small groups here and there in Vrindavan. Text 4 and 5. O girl, this son of Nanda, who gives joy to the distressed, bears steady lightning on his chest and has a smile like a jeweled something wonderful. When he vibrates his flute, Braj's bulls, deer, and cows, standing in groups at a great distance, are all captivated by the sound, and they stop chewing the food in their mouths and cock their ears. Stunned, they appear as if asleep, or like figures in a painting. Purport. The word Stiravidyut, steady lightning, refers to the goddess of fortune, who resides on the chest of the Supreme Lord. When the animals of Vrindavan hear the sound of the flute, they become stunned in ecstasy, and thus they stop chewing their food and cannot swallow it. The gopis in separation from Krishna marvel at the extraordinary effect of the Lord's flute playing. Srila Sridhar Swami gives the following explanation of the compound word hara hasa, which compares Lord Krishna's smile to a necklace. The word can mean he whose smile is brilliantly clear like a jeweled necklace, or he whose smile is reflected from his jeweled necklaces. Because while Krishna plays the flute, he bends his head down and smiles. The word can also mean he whose smile, like a jeweled necklace, casts its effulgence upon his chest, or he whose necklaces shine brilliantly, just like a smile. Sanskrit poetry. Six to 7. My dear gopis, sometimes Mukunda imitates the appearance of a wrestler by decorating himself with leaves, peacock feathers, and colored minerals. Then, in the company of Bonum and the cowherd boys, he plays his flute to call the cows. At that time the rivers stop flowing, their water stunned by the ecstasy they feel as they eagerly wait for the wind to bring them the dust of his lotus feet. But like us, the rivers are not very pious, and thus they merely wait with their arms trembling out of love. Purport. The Gopis state here that the sound of Krishna's flute caused even inanimate objects like rivers to become conscious and then stunned in ecstasy. Just as the Gopis could not always be in Krishna's physical association, the rivers could not come to the Lord's lotus feet. Although they desired the Lord, their movement was checked by ecstasy, and their arms, their waves, trembled with love of Godhead. 8 through 11. Krishna moves about the forest in the company of his friends, who vividly chant the glories of his magnificent deeds. He thus appears just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exhibiting his inexhaustible opulences. When the cows wander onto the mountainsides and Krishna calls out to them with the sound of his flute, the trees and creepers in the forest respond by becoming so luxuriant with fruits and flowers that they seem to be manifesting Lord Vishnu within their hearts. As their branches bend with the weight, the filaments on their trunks and vines stand erect out of the ecstasy of love of God, and both the trees and the creepers pour down a rain of sweet sap. Maddened by the divine honey-like aroma of the tulsi flowers on the garland Krishna wears, swarms of bees sing loudly for him, and that most beautiful of all persons thankfully acknowledges and acclaims their song by taking his flute to his lips and playing it. The charming flute song then steals away the minds of the cranes, swans, and other lake-dwelling birds. Indeed, they approach Krishna, close their eyes, and maintaining strict silence, worship him by fixing their consciousness upon him in deep meditation. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has made several illuminating comments on these verses. He gives the analogy that just as when householder Vaishnavas hear a Sankirtan party approaching, they become ecstatic and offer obeisances, so the trees and creepers in Vrindavan became ecstatic when they heard Krishna's flute and bowed down with their branches and vines. The word darshaniya tilaka in text 10 indicates not only that the Lord is the most excellent to see, but also that he decorated himself with attractive reddish tilak taken from the mineral-rich earth of Vrindavan forest. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also points out that tulsi, although exalted in many ways, is not normally considered an especially fragrant plant. However, early in the morning, tulsi emits a transcendental fragrance that ordinary people cannot perceive, but the transcendental personalities fully appreciate. The bees who are privileged to swarm about the flower garlands worn by the Supreme Personality of Godhead certainly appreciate this fragrance. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes from the Bhagavatam 3:15-19 to the effect that the most fragrant plants in Vrindavan also appreciate the special qualifications of Tulsi Devi. The word Sandita Venu in text 10 indicates that Lord Krishna placed his flute firmly upon his lips. And the melody emanating from that flute is certainly the most enchanting of sounds, as the Gopis describe in this chapter. Text 12 and 13. O goddesses of Braja, when Krishna is enjoying himself with Balaram on the mountain slopes, playfully wearing a flower garland on the top of his head, he engladdens all with the resonant vibrations of his flute. Thus, he delights the entire world. At that time the nearby cloud, afraid of offending a great personality, thunders very gently in accompaniment. The cloud showers flowers unto his dear friend Krishna and shades him from the sun like an umbrella. Beautiful translations. Beautiful. Text 14:15. O pious Mother Yashoda, your son, who was expert in all the arts of herding cows, has invented many new styles of flute playing. When he takes a flute to his bimba-red lips and sends forth the tones of the harmonic scale in variegated melodies, Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and other chief demigods become confused upon hearing the sound. Although they are the most learned authorities, they cannot ascertain the essence of that music, and thus they bow their heads and hearts. Purport. The words Tava Sutak Sati, your son, O chaste lady, clearly indicate that at this point Mother Yashoda is among the young gopis as they earnestly describe Lord Krishna's glories. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, among the demigods led by Shakra, Lord Indra, and Upendra, Agni, and Yamaraj, among those led by Sharva, Lord Shiva, were Katyayani, Skanda, and Ganesh. And among those led by Parameshti, Lord Brahma, were the four Kumaras and Narada. Thus the best collective intelligence in the universe could not definitively analyze the enchanting musical arrangements of the Supreme Lord. Text 16-17. As Krishna strolls through Braja with his lotus petal-like feet, marking the ground with the distinctive emblems of flag, thunderbolt, lotus, and elephant goad, he relieves the distress of the ground feels from the cow's hooves. As he plays his renowned flute, his body moves with the grace of an elephant. Thus we gopis, who become agitated by Cupid when Krishna playfully glances at us, stand as still as trees, unaware that our hair and garments are slackening. Purport. Here Mother Yashoda is no longer in the company of the gopis, who are confidently describing their conjugal attraction to Sri Krishna. It is clear from the comments of Jiva Goswami and other acharyas that the statements in this chapter were made at various times and places. This is natural, since the gopis were always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna day and night. So the point about this is that the residents of Braja, they do their daily duties. They have their household duties, they have their economic duties, they have their administrative duties. The gopis have their household chores. They just keep doing all of those things. And all the time, they're just singing Krishna's glories. And that's what makes them the greatest devotees. Text 19. Therefore Krishna says, what's the verse? Manmana, mabhavan bhakto, madhyaji mam namaskuru. Just think of me. Become my devotee. Offer your homage unto me. Sometimes we think we have to do this or we have to do that. But actually the essence is to think of Krishna. So that's why what we're doing now is so important. To give us inspiration and also food for thought. You know. If you can do this and still distribute books, you know, do your preaching engagements and do your studies or do your, literary work or just your menial service or whatever you're doing, then you become elevated to the topmost place, the topmost Krishna consciousness. It doesn't have anything to do with external circumstances. That's what ahaitaki apatiyati means. Ahaitaki apatiyata. It means it's not dependent on any external thing. Now, Krishna is standing somewhere, counting his cows on a string of gems. He wears a garland of tulsi flowers that bear the fragrance of his beloved, and he has thrown his arm over the shoulder of an affectionate cowherd boyfriend. As Krishna plays his flute and sings, the music attracts the black deer's wives, who approach that ocean of transcendental qualities and sit down beside him. Just like us cowherd girls, they have given up all hope for happiness in family life. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that in the afternoon, Sri Krishna dressed himself in a different outfit and then went out to call the cows home. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti gives the following information about the transcendental cows of Vrindavan. For each of the 4 colors of cows, white, red, black, and yellow, there are 25 subdivisions, making a total of 100 colors. And such qualities as being colored like sandalwood pulp, tilak, and such qualities as being colored like sandalwood pulp tilak, speckled, or having a head shaped like a mridanga drum, create 8 further groups. To count these 108 groups of cows, distinguished by color and form, Krishna is using a string of 108 jewel beads. Thus, when Krishna calls out, "Hey Davali," the name of a white cow, a whole group of cows come forward. And when he calls Hansi, Chandani, Ganga, Mukta, and so on, the 24 other groups of white cows come. The reddish cows are called Aruni, Kumkum, Saraswati, etc. The blackish ones, Shamala, Dumala, Yamuna, etc. And the yellowish ones, Pita, Pingala, Haritalika, etc. Those in the group with tilak markings on their foreheads are called Chitrita, Chitratilaka, Dirgatilaka, and Tiryaktilaka. And there are the groups known as Mridanga Mukhi, Mridanga head, Singamukhi, lion head, and so on. Thus being called by name, are coming forward in Krishna, thinking that when it is time to bring them back from the forest, none should be forgotten, is counting them on his jewel beads. Text 20:21. I mean, where else can you find like this of what goes on in the spiritual world? Nothing's even close. Huh? Yeah, I mean, God is great. O sinless Yashoda, your darling child, the son of Maharaja Nanda, has festively enchanted his entire with a jasmine garland. And he is now playing along the Yamuna in the company of the cows and cowherd boys, amusing his dear companions. The gentle breeze honors him with its soothing fragrance of sandalwood, while the various upadevas, standing on all sides like panegyrists, offer their music, singing, and gifts of tribute. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that the Gopis are again in the courtyard of Mother Yashoda, the Queen of Braja. They are trying to encourage her by describing Krishna's return to Vrindavan after he has spent the day herding cows and playing. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that the Upadevas, the minor demigods mentioned here, include the Gandharvas, who were famous for their celestial music and dancing. 22-23. Out of great affection for the cows of Braja, Krishna became the lifter of Govardhan Hill. At the end of the day, having rounded up all his own cows, he plays a song on his flute, while exalted demigods standing along the path worship his lotus feet, and the cowherd boys, accompanying him, chant his glories. His garland is powdered by the dust raised by the cow's hooves. And his beauty, enhanced by his fatigue, creates an ecstatic festival for everyone's eyes. Eager to fulfill his friend's desires, Krishna is the moon arisen from the womb of Mother Yashoda. Purport. According to the Acharyas, at this point the gopis climbed into watchtowers of Vrindavan's house so they could see Krishna as soon as possible when he returned home. Mother Yashoda was very anxious for her son to come back, and therefore she had the tallest of the beautiful young gopis climb up to see when he would arrive. It is implied here that Krishna was somewhat delayed on the way home because his lotus feet were being worshipped by great demigods along the path. 24 and 25. As Krishna respectfully greets his well-wishing friends, his eyes roll slightly as if from intoxication. He wears a flower garland, and the beauty of his soft cheeks is accentuated by the brilliance of his golden earrings and the whiteness of his face, which has the color of a badara berry. With his cheerful face resembling the moon, Lord of the night, the Lord of the Yadus moves with the grace of a regal elephant. Thus he returns in the evening, delivering the cows of Braja from the heat of the day. Purport. The word gavam is constructed from the Sanskrit word go, which means cow or senses. Thus, Sri Krishna, by coming back to the village of Braja, relieved the inhabitants of Vrindavan from the distress their eyes and other senses felt during the day because of being separated from direct contact with him. 26. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, thus during the daytime the women of Vrindavan took pleasure in continuously singing about the pastimes of Krishna, and those ladies' minds and hearts, absorbed in him, were filled with great festivity. Purport. This verse confirms that the so-called pain of the broken-hearted gopis is actually great spiritual bliss. On the material platform, pain is pain, period. But on the spiritual platform, so-called pain is simply a different variety of spiritual ecstasy. In the Western countries, people take pleasure in mixing different flavors of ice cream to produce wonderful combinations of flavor. Similarly, on the spiritual platform, Sri Krishna and his devotees expertly mix the flavors of spiritual bliss, and thus every day was a treat for the gopis. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of this divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to Canto, 35th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled, The Gopis Sing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest. Hare Krishna. Well, we're almost up to an hour, and we've done 2 chapters exactly. I think we'll stop here and take reflections and whatever you want else you want to talk about. A little overwhelming. The poetic similes and beautiful writing, actually. The beautiful literary excellence of this work is, to me, is glorification of Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada disciples do it. So what kind of spiritual master does a person have to do something like this? To me, it's the greatest glorification of Prabhupada that he has disciples who can do this. And therefore, we should relish Prabhupada's relishing. If you can appreciate this really for what it is, and not think, oh, this isn't Prabhupada, or Prabhupada wouldn't have said it like this, or whatever the critical mind comes up with, then you have to wait. You have to wait to taste the nectar of these sections of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So this is the purpose of our sadhana, it's the purpose of our austerities, it's the purpose of everything that we do in Krishna consciousness, to bring us to the point where we can hear, where we can actually hear. And if you actually hear, means your mind's not doing anything else. That's what it means. Your mind's not doing anything else. And then the sound and the beauty of these descriptions goes through the mind and down through the heart to the soul. And then you taste something wonderful. That's the first stage of advancing in Krishna consciousness, to hear. That's what Shravana means. Okay, I'll stop now. I'm going to hogging the show here. Anybody else has anything they want to add? Or, yes, Mahendra. I saw you first, sorry. Then you.
I was just...
Wait. Be careful with this. It's delicate, but it's a good one. You can just hold it. Yeah, close to your mouth.
The description is so enchanting, and as you say, if we hear, I think it picks in such a wonderful way. These are only small snippets, as it was explained, from different groups at different time. Yeah. We just get little taste to little bit, but so much detail even in this few verses. Yeah. If we think about Krishna's so many things in the environment, what's happening and how Krishna looks like, and the garland is on top of his head, and everything, so many details, and they are completely absorbed. And as you say, if we just hear without prejudices who wrote this and that and how exactly, just be absorbed in this beautiful poetry which was given to us.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Yes. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, if you can hear this with faith and love and without argument, without argument means without that critical, tendency of the mind's critical, find something with it that's not actually perfect, or not, according to your modes or whatever it is, and that prevents us. That's the obstacle.
I was just thinking about the chapter we read earlier, the Vidyadhara offending Angira Muni. Sometimes we see when a person becomes proud of his beauty, position, opulence, he immediately has this tendency to, show off, or, to make others, to show them down. And this tendency sometimes crop up among the devotees also. So, it's difficult sometimes to, when we get certain position, certain opulence, or certain facilities from what others don't get, to still have the consciousness of being a humble servant and just carry on the services. So it's like great challenge for a person at that position to get that. So I have a question also, like, how does one, be still a simple devotee when he's in a high position, or he gets a lot of respect and lot of position, a lot of opulences and other things?
Well, again and again and again, it comes back to the same thing. You have to hear, because everything is here in these verses and these purports. the lesson. You just said something that is taught to us by the examples of these personalities, both those who are doing the right thing and those who are not doing the right thing. So the answer is, you have to hear, and then you have to follow. You have to hear, you have to digest, and then you have to reform your character according to what we hear. What is proper and what is not proper, what the results are going to be. This is the process of Krishna consciousness. We hear, we see what happens when we respond in a certain way to opulence or anything else for that matter. And then we learn how to respond by practice. It's like anything else. It's like any other subject. You get hired by some big company and you're the one in front, in the booth, whatever, in the these big these big what do they call them? Trade festivals. You got to be there in the booth, and you got to show your best face, and you got to charm everybody, and you got to, So that takes training. I was just hearing somebody the other day, maybe it was Vaisheshika Prabhu, who was telling me how, people, in order to get these jobs, they get trained. These big government jobs or big Salesforce and big, Google and Facebook and all these different, Apple and all these companies, you're trained. You go into an Apple store and every single person's got the same shirt on and they know exactly what to do. They got the same, iPad with the same buttons to push and everything just goes, so like that's an analogy, of course. It's a gross example. But when we hear these literatures, and we should realize that this is what we're supposed to be like. And you can't control the other people and how they act. Control ourselves and act according to the position that we're in, and according to who we are, and according to what our service is. And then we contribute. We become a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem. And Krishna appreciates that so much that from within the heart, that's what Didadmi Buddhi Yogam Tam means. When he sees you doing service with affection and appreciating him with affection and trying to follow in the footsteps of his great devotees, that's why he said what we just heard Maharaj Ambarish just in the 9th canto. Maharaj Ambarish, what did Vishnu say about his devotees? He said, I'm controlled by my devotees. You can't, sorry, I can't do anything. You have to go back to Ambarish, Durvasa, fall at his feet and get his forgiveness. So all these things, it's right there, right there. It's laid out how to act, how to do it, how to be. We hear this every time we give a program, every time we answer questions. How can we do this? How can I do that? How can I be better devoted? It's all a process. It's a science. It's not just about some sentiment that you have because you can, appreciate these beautiful poetry. That's part of it. It's a very important part of it. But you can't actually do that until your heart's clean. Until your character is, lined up or dialed in to Krishna consciousness. Yes. Therefore we just heard the 9. How many curses did we hear about? How many people running off with how many people's wives did we hear about? And here we hear just because he made fun of some, sages who didn't look very nice and he was a beautiful Gandharva. And then look what happened to him. He had to become a snake. Sometimes when you hear this story particularly, I heard devotees say, "Oh, that's just exaggeration. A snake can't swallow a man." Well, there are snakes right now who will swallow a cow, a whole cow. Big pythons, they'll swallow an alligator, crocodile. Yeah, alive. It happens, and then they digest it. So these are not exaggerations. Reality. These things actually happened. So this is another aspect of how we can promote or help ourselves get the full benefit, of these pastimes by hearing them submissively. Submissive oral reception. How many times have we heard it in Prabhupada's books? Submissive oral reception. And then all of the answers to those questions, they come into the heart. But the inquiry part of it is part of it. The submission is part of it. The service is part of it. It's the science. But the gateway to that science is right in, I sound like a broken record. I must have said this 100,000 times in the last 10 years when I first got this idea that this tadvidi panipatina pariprashnena sevya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Maybe we can open this door to get some air because it's quiet out there now, hopefully. And close the screen door. No fly. We don't need more mosquitoes. So the elements are there. Tadvidi pariprashnena. Approach, inquire, submissively, and serve. That's the essence. And then tattvadarshini. Those who actually know the science, they can explain it to you. They can give you that knowledge. And then the next verse, Yajgatva napunar moham evam yasasi pandava yena bhutanya sheshani draksha shatmanjito mayi. The next verse says, when you've gotten that knowledge, then what? Then you can see that every living being is a part of the Supreme, or in other words, they're mine, Krishna says. So this is the gateway. If you're actually hearing the Gita, especially the basics, then you'll begin to see everyone you meet as belonging to Krishna. And automatically, if there's any love in your heart at all, then you'll feel that affection, spiritual affection, not lusty affection. And that's the gateway. Then all the other instructions from the Gita proceed from there. Being tolerant, being equipoised, being steady, not giving trouble to anyone else, not being troubled by anyone else. And all these wonderful that Krishna gives at the end of the 12th chapter of the Gita, what pleases him the most, how to act, how to think, how to feel, how to will in such a way that Krishna will become most pleased. And then, because it is natural for us to be like that. This other thing, we're in the material world, this is unnatural. And that's why we always feel strange. No? Okay. Who else? Let me see. Who else? Yes.
Yeah, Maharaj, you commented about the detail in the verses, and it reminded me when I was listening to a class by Bhakti Tirtha Swami a long time ago, and it struck me what he said there. He said that he was speaking at an interfaith conference about the non-sectarianism in our philosophy, and but he was saying very strongly. He was saying that we're looking for the highest knowledge, and we can find knowledge in many scriptures that is spiritual knowledge that we can use for our spiritual advancement. But these scriptures give us the most, and it gives the most detailed knowledge. So he said, if you can show me some other scripture that gives me more than the Bhagavad Gita or anywhere else, we'll take it. Yeah. It's amazing. It's just that was like when I was kind of getting more into Krishna consciousness, but just hearing that was like, it's just fantastic how you can have such broad-mindedness like that.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that in every religion in the world there are Kanishta adhikaris, madhyamadhikaris, and uttamadhikaris. Think about that. But because the understanding may be impersonal, in their uttamadhikaris are Brahman realized. They're not necessarily understanding Krishna as a person and feeling love, personal love and exchange, like we've been hearing the Gopis and the other Brajbasis express their affection for Krishna. And how the Brajbasis responded to Nanda Maharaj being, swallowed by a snake, and how Krishna touched the thing and immediately became liberated, and the whole situation was, how much affection Krishna has. So there may be Kanishta and Madhyam and Uttamadhikaris in all the different religions, but like you were saying, like Bhakti Tirtha was saying, Maharaj, that the actual knowledge, the depth of the knowledge and understanding and details that are given gives you an opportunity to go farther in terms of development of your personal relationship with God. And that's you can't hear these things anywhere else. What we just heard, there's nothing that even comes close to it. That's not sectarianism. That's fact. Yeah.
Maharaj, I was just thinking about this fact that anytime a pure devotee comes in some danger, he always takes shelter of Krishna. Like how Nanda Maharaj, just as soon as he was swallowed by the snake, he was just calling Krishna, Krishna Mahanya. Or whenever the Govardhan was, the Indra was showering the rains, all the Brajbasis went and took shelter of Krishna. Whenever a demon has attacked the Gopas, the Vrindavan Basis, they always just took shelter of Krishna like this. This great amazing thing that discriminates among a devotee who is all just in the thoughts of Krishna, is taking shelter of Krishna at the time of difficulties, whereas devotees who are just progressing in the path of bhakti, or maybe or on the process, they take shelter of different things rather than taking shelter of Krishna during the difficulties. So it's like this thought is like so beautiful to think that we need to just only take shelter of Krishna rather than taking shelter of so many different things which are available.
Yeah, well, the Gita, again, it comes back to the Gita, because in the Gita, Krishna is appealing to Arjuna different wavelengths in all different ways, because there are people all over the world, all over the universe, in different degrees of faith and different degrees of understanding, and therefore they need to be convinced in different ways, like Arjuna. Like Krishna said to Arjuna, if you leave the battlefield, what are people going to think? What are the great heroes that have honored you as a great warrior, what are they going to think? They're going to think you're a coward. And he's just playing to his Kshatriya pride, which is one thing. But then at the end, the philosophy, and then the yoga, and then the modes of nature, and all these different things. But at the end, he just says, forget all that. Just do what I tell you, because I want you to do it. Of course, in the meantime, he showed him the universal form. That was pretty convincing. Yes, if you could see the universal form of Krishna, you'd be pretty convinced also. But anyway, yes. It is simple. Just mam ekam sharanam braja. That's the whole, and ma shujaha. And what's the last line of that purport? Do you remember the last sentence?
If you don't know how to surrender, if you're worrying about how to surrender,
Yeah.
then
Go ahead.
then
Go ahead.
There's no need for such.
Listen to this. One may be perplexed as to how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna, but such worry is useless. This is the last sentence of the purport to Bhagavad Gita 1866, Sarvadharman Prityaja. One may be perplexed as to how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna, but such worry is useless. You get to worry about something and this and that, and then all of a sudden it passes, and then what was I worrying about? You know? It's just the nature. They come and they go, and the worry comes and goes, and that's what it means to be fixed in Christian conscience. They're part of it. Anyway. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Pass the mic around this room.
So we were hearing.
It's kind of like England compared to the United States. Go ahead.
So we were hearing when the Gopis were analyzing the effects of Krishna's flute on everything else. So then, at first, I kind of had a doubt, like, well, how come they're not being affected by his flute? But then I kind of had a realization, and I want to ask if this is an accurate way to view it. I thought, no, actually, we're seeing it. So my question is it accurate to say that the Gopis' analytical disposition is actually their ecstatic reaction to Krishna's flute?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mixture of mellows. It's a mixture of tastes that when you put it all together, it becomes rasa. You know, all the different all the different bhavas and vibhavas. You know, the sthai bhava is one of the 5 sthai bhavas is neutrality, servitorship, you know, friendship, parental love, or conjugal love. So each one of those, that's the sthai, that's the basis. Sthai bhava means the thing it's built on, the foundation. And then, you know, comedy and ghastliness and fear and compassion and all those different emotions, when they mix together, they become prominent actually as the pastimes, as they react to all these different things in love. Then the indirect will become prominent temporarily, but they'll be within the frame of the emotions that a person has as a conjugal lover or a parent or a friend. So yes, everything that the gopis are describing in humility, you know, in envy, and with anger, with you know, compassion, and all these things, they're all different ecstasies, personal ecstasies that they're experiencing, including their analysis of the situation. Definitely, very nice. So we're going to stop now. It's almost 5:30. We've been going on for almost an hour and a half. And we'd like to thank everyone for coming and for participating in this yajna. This is a very serious yajna we're doing here. It's every day yajna, you know, and our Kartik yajna is more intense, but this one's in a sense more intense because it's every day, no matter what. And we'd like to thank everyone out there in cyberspace. We hope that everyone now can catch up. Again, we heard from Vilas Manjari that though there was some slight breakage in the live stream, when she actually listened to it afterwards, it flowed. There was no actually break. It was flowing, so it didn't miss anything. And I want to hear about these things. I think we're going to have a project that somebody's going to have to go back and listen to all the things, because we have a whole Bhagavatam now. The whole Bhagavatam has been almost recorded like this, in this format, which is very, very special. It's a unique product, and we want to make it. I mean, I'm sure that some of those days there may have been breakage and difficult to listen to. We want to make it all come together and make it a package that we can distribute in different ways through different media. Even take the sound out and just do the sound, or go to different media, different venues to distribute it. Let's see. Anyway, Hare Krishna. But the last thing I want to say is, I want to say it again, I said it in the beginning, that these chapters of the Bhagavatam, from 14 onwards, that were finished, that were composed, written and translated and composed by my godbrothers, Ridananda Maharaj, Gopi Prananda, and edited by Dravida. Anyone who is not reading them because of Prabhupada is missing something essential, because Prabhupada wanted us to read the whole Bhagavatam. And 11th and 10th cantos, the same goes for the 11th and 12th cantos. You have to read the whole Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada, this is Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. You can hear it in the purports. It's so wonderful. All right, we'll stop here. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Giri Govardhan ki jai. Kartik Vrat ki jai. Samabeda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. See you tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. India time, same station, same place. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.